We'll begin with a roll call, please.
Commencing roll call now. Vice Chair Blair Whitney,
Here.
Council Member Juan Carlos Prado,
Here.
Council Member Everardo Rodriguez,
I'm here.
Council Member Jennifer Reese, Council Member Nick Catholic,
Present.
Council Member Kathleen Welch. Here. Council Member George Salmon. Chair Brooks Esser.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is public comment. Anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. If you're in the room, please fill out a speaker slip. Online attendees may use the raised hand feature in Zoom. Please note that the council may not discuss or take action on items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Brief announcement, we do have an interpreter joining us this evening. For those of you joining us in person, if you would like to listen to this meeting in Spanish, please use the headsets provided at the check-in table. Ruby, if you would like to provide these instructions in Spanish.
Sorry, we're just checking logistics of who's present, who's not present for voting and for a motion.
Okay,
And we have 2 council members on the call, only one to be considered excused and the other one is unexcused.
that's right. Thank you.
We have a quorum.
It is.
We do.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
It is now time for general public comment. If you would like to make public comment, please bring a speaker slip up to the clerk during this time. For those of you joining this meeting online, please use the hand raise feature on Zoom. Each person will be granted 2 minutes to speak. Does anyone have public comment on any topic not on the agenda? There are no public comments at this time. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, agenda item number 3, Middlefield Road Small Business Assistance Program Outreach Update. We have 20 minutes for this. Presentation is going to be given by Joshua Caspelon and Megan Gosh of the Office of Community Affairs.
They'll be online.
There we go.
Good evening, council members. My name is Joshua Caspillion, representing the County Executive's Office of Community Affairs. Tonight, I'm delighted to provide an update on the Middlefield Road Small Business Assistance Program. Next slide, please. Just for some background information, on July 11, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, under the leadership of Supervisor Warren Slocum, demonstrated that their commitment to supporting local businesses by directing nearly $1 million to help small businesses along Middlefield Road between Douglas Avenue and Fifth Avenue in North Fair Oaks. These businesses have faced challenges due to the Middlefield Road Improvement Project. The program aims to provide eligible businesses with up to 2 $5,000 grants, which will be distributed at least 30 days apart. These grants are intended to help businesses offset revenue losses, support payroll needs, and cover current business operating expenses during the project, ensuring their continued operation. Next slide, please. To be eligible for this program, businesses must meet the following criteria. The business must currently occupy a physical commercial business space with a customer serving storefront on Middlefield Road within the project limits, which runs between Douglas Avenue and Fifth Avenue. The business must be in full compliance with all applicable regulations, including, but not limited to, regulations related to the following: county environmental health permits, county planning and building requirements, and state and local minimum wage requirements. The business must have been lawfully operating and located at its current location at some period during the project and is open for business and serving customers with a plan to remain in operation through the completion of the project. The business must have fewer than 25 full-time employees and be independently owned and operated. And lastly, the business must demonstrate a negative financial impact due to the construction, such as, for example, decreased revenue, challenges in covering payroll, rent, and other operating costs. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, not all businesses will be eligible, and some ineligible businesses include cannabis businesses and businesses supporting cannabis, liquor stores, tobacconists, and smoke and vape shops. Next slide, please. Outreach for the grant program began last Friday, July 21st, and I'm pleased to report that Community Affairs has identified 98 businesses with storefronts facing Middlefield Road that may be eligible for the program. As of July 25th, we have received applications from 65 businesses. And I'm thrilled to announce that the first batch of checks, each worth $5,000, will be issued tentatively by the first week of August, totaling $325,000 and much needed assistance to support our local businesses. And in consideration of potential mail delivery issues, we are providing 2 options for receiving a check. Business owners can choose to have the check mailed, or they can opt to pick it up at the San Mateo Credit Union located at 3117 Middlefield Road. Next slide, please. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open to any questions or feedback you may have.
Are there any questions for Joshua from council members? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Blair, please.
The exclusions. I don't think we have any cannabis stuff on like a licensed dispensary. I'm not sure to look at because you're like a little box on the screen. But liquor, I think there's one liquor store on the right side, right before Fifth Avenue. What about like the bars and the pool halls? Are they excluded because liquor is their primary income?
On a case-by-case scenario basis, it depends on how they're registered as a business. Usually, if that is the case, we defer to the grants team as well as our department manager for consideration for the grant.
I can answer that question. That would be equivalent to a liquor store. So right now we're excluding the bars.
Was there a reason for that?
They are been excluded. That came out of a direction, and Adam, please feel free to jump in. If they came out of the board of supervisors and really limiting, we're limited on allocation, we're limited on priority, and really trying to hit those most impacted during the day, during the construction hours. That includes restaurants, retail, the auto industry. It's everybody that's customer facing. So we had to do a level of priority, and that was where that was selected. But Adam, anything else you might have?
No, I think that's it exactly.
Blair, please.
I know a lot of businesses closed. Are they eligible to say, hey, I suffered for 1.5 years and I closed 6 months ago. Can I get some money?
The criteria is that the business must be currently operating so that they can, the allocation is so that they can continue to operate and during this time. So they must be in operation.
Comment? Can I comment?
Please.
So grateful to Supervisor Slocum, the Office of Community Affairs. You guys did a beautiful job. Couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of the North Fair Oaks Council and what you guys did, because it was beautiful. And I know firsthand from speaking to a lot of the restaurant owners, and I know firsthand what those struggles are like. And yeah, it's a good thing. You guys did really good work. So thank you.
Yeah, I second Councilwoman Daly, and also just wanted to make sure that these are grants and do not need to get repaid. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. There are no requirements from businesses when they get these grants?
The requirement is that they have to, one is show that they're a business operator, that they are the owner, that they live, that it's on North Fair Oaks, and it's a very high touch outreach. So we're really looking at storefront operations only. And so again, like we said, 65 have already completed the application, and 65 should be getting their checks no later than Monday or Tuesday.
Excellent.
At 5,000, the first one, and then the next batch is 30 days later, they'll get the second batch.
Thank you.
Sorry, Emma, can I add something to that? At the end of this year, each business owners who receive the grant will receive a 1099 form. And in order for them to basically process during tax season.
Other questions from council members?
Brooks, if I could also just add one additional thing. I think Josh is underestimating the amount of work that he's done. The grants was approved. There's a lot of behind the scenes that has to take place with paperwork and really when he started this Friday afternoon, by Monday, Tuesday, when he reported on Tuesday, he has 65 signed. Wired was transferred on Wednesday and checks are being distributed and making that available. So, I really want to applaud his hard work. It's a testament to his relationship that he has with the small business, the trust, and really the vision of the supervisor and the county executive. And I want to take a moment to thank those council members that were able to join us at that Board of Supervisors meeting, as well as the business owners that came to really express the importance, but really kind of rally together. So that was so important that day and continues to be important. Thank you all for your leadership and having this happen.
Can we clap?
Question for Josh, of the 65 businesses that have applied already, can you give us a rough breakdown, restaurants versus auto repair versus just to get an idea of the kinds of businesses that have responded most quickly to this?
It's a good mix. The outreach that was conducted, it was divided by phases as a reflection of how the project was moving along. And each phase it's a good mix of either auto shops, restaurants, and some other business types. So I wish I had that number, Chair Brooks, but just know that everyone is accounting for different types of businesses have applied. And
Can I add, everybody is a priority, as you know, but we did prioritize the restaurants.
Sure. No, that makes
We did
sense.
prioritize the restaurants. We did prioritize those that were, that have expressed they're on the verge, those that came. And so we really felt that that was, priority one and then kind of went down, although all of them are priorities, but in a very short time, and Josh is still working to collect that. The work isn't done, but we're about 65% done within less than a week.
It's terrific. Please, Claire, go ahead.
I just want to say there's a great precedent that we think about the businesses impacted, because I've never really seen this anywhere before. When they built light rail in San Jose, businesses just went under. Granite Rock got like 18 million to build this, and then the price went up and the Board of Supervisors took care of the contractor, but the businesses, suffered. And this is like a kind of a social justice thing. The people most impacted are getting some relief. And if it's possible to think about that in the future for major public works, that if the schedules get blown out of the water, that local businesses should be taken care of, not just the government, not just the contractor, because it's like automatic. They bid low, they get extra money, but yeah.
Any other questions from
Maybe just a
council members? Kathleen?
Shout out, grateful to Public Works because they got involved too, and they are trying to move it along. You can see more people out there. You can see them working on Saturdays now. So yeah, I think we owe Public Works a big thank you as well for doing what they can to push this along.
Yeah, I noticed work going on this evening as I was driving
Yeah.
up at 6:30, which
Yeah.
is terrific.
Yeah, and there's additional efforts, including some work coming up this Saturday. Some zones phase 6 and 7 that are going to be completed hopefully shortly with K-rail removed, which should improve access. So I can do a little bit of report out on some of the timelines, but it's starting to come fast and furious.
It really is a testament, I think, also to and acknowledging the small businesses that came forward to this meeting and how quickly some of these things were implemented so quickly. I say in record time, we've never seen anything happen so quickly. It really is a testament to the work here a testament to the businesses and building that trust, and really that we're listening and we're deploying, making a difference, trying to.
Other questions from council members? I wanted to add my appreciation to the whole OCA team, in particular, Josh, for all the work that he's done making this happen. And also thank council members Salmon and Daly for meeting with the business owners early on, meeting with the supervisors, and really helping to drive this from the council's perspective. So thank you both very much. Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 3, Middlefield Road Small Business Assistance Program, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or bring a speaker set up to the clerk during this time. You will be granted 2 minutes to speak at the time your name is called. There are no public comments at this time. Back to you, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. That closes this item. Next, agenda item 4. Recommendation for PPLN 2022, excuse me, -00113, use permit, development review permit, and a grading permit for a new 23,394 square foot mixed-use development, including research and development on 3 levels and 1 level of residential use at 2875 El Camino Real, North Fair Oaks. We have 20 minutes allocated for this agenda item, and the presentation will be given by Kanwa Kelly of Planning and Building. Kanwa, are you online tonight?
I'm here. Yeah. Let's see. Let me try to share my screen so you can all see my presentation here. 1 second. All right, good evening, council members and members of the public. So we have a project here for your consideration. As you said, it's at 2875 El Camino Real in North Fair Oaks. This is a consideration of a use permit for 23,394 square foot mixed use development for offices, research and development, and residential mixed use facility in the CMU1 zone. This also includes a merger of 2 parcels to accommodate the project. And the project has an underground parking garage for 25 parking spaces and also bicycle storage. As we said, it's at 2875 El Camino in North Fair Oaks, and this is between Berkshire and Dumbarton Avenue. And here you can see the 2 parcels. The project will span both parcels, and the parcels are approximately 11,900 square feet. And these are the 2 parcels that will be merged. Right now, as you can see, it's a vacant building. And up in the top right, you can see an overhead view of the parking lot on the left side. So right now it's not being utilized. And then there's the parking lot that's also going to be merged as part of the project. So this is a rendering of what it will look like. It's a 4-story building, again, 23,394 square feet. A mix of different materials, glass, aluminum, high quality materials that will enhance the area. So you can see here, we'll just go through the floor plans. This is the parking level, and 25 stalls is what is required for the project for our zoning regulation, per our zoning regulations. The North Fair Oaks plan also encourages the use of lifts so that the garages are not visible and they don't take up a lot of space. So within a smaller footprint, you can park more vehicles. And this is going to be underground as well, so that you won't have to see it. It'll be hidden from view. Then on the right, you'll see the first floor, which kind of it has the lobby there, the entry plaza, and out into the street is the open office area where folks can work. And then the next 2 stories are very similar. You'll have your biology lab, open office space, and other break rooms and office areas. And then finally, on the 4th floor, you can see the units here, and you have a mixture of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units on the top floor, and there's a total of 4 units provided on the top floor for this project. So here you can see we went through the North Fair Oaks design guidelines, and these materials and the design complies with all of the design criteria that's been detailed in the staff report. So project compliance. The project meets all of the CMU1 development standards, design guidelines, parking standards, and general performance standards that are outlined in the zoning regulations for CMU1. The project's consistent with the general plan and North Fair Oaks community plans, the land use maps, and the trip generation will be approximately 218 daily trips, which is less than the 500 daily trips that would trigger a traffic analysis. The county traffic engineer has also reviewed the preliminary traffic numbers and the VMT analysis, and has no concerns about level of service in this area. And on the right, you can see the development standards for floor area setbacks and how the project complies with those. It's also detailed in the staff report. So for environmental review, the project was, as part of the packet, you should have received a consistency analysis that was provided of how the project will comply with the programmatic EIR that was prepared for the North Fair Oaks community plan. The project was determined to be consistent with the plan, and no new environmental impacts will be introduced with the project. So the EIR adequately describes all the potential impacts, and the project would comply with all of the mitigation measures in the EIR. So no further environmental review is required. So finally, for the recommendation, we recommend that the North Fair Oaks Community Council provide a recommendation to the zoning hearing officer, which is where it will go next on the proposed permit and lot merger. So since we put this in the on the agenda, there are some new policies, and there's a new grading permit policy that the project is exempt from a formal grading permit from planning. So we removed a few of those permits. So right now, you're just providing a recommendation on the use permit and the merger, the lot merger. And that concludes my presentation. We can open up to comments, or we can, if you want to hear from the applicant, we can have them speak.
Do we have questions from council members on this project?
We hear from the applicant first.
We can hear from the applicant first. If the applicant would like to say a few words with regard to the project, please, they may do so now. That would be, yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Joma. I'm a project architect. And as Camilla mentioned, we have a 4-story building with 1 level of subterranean parking garage. It's a mixed-use building with the residential on top floor. The research facilities that we're proposing are mostly the genome industry. That's what my client is profession. And so by combining the 2 lots, we are able to produce this building, and we believe is definitely would be an asset to the neighborhood, creating jobs and providing some residency. We have implemented some solar panels on the rooftop, but for some reason was not in the slide. But the roof level is also available to the employees. Open space. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there questions from council members, either for Kanawa or our presenter here? Please, Everardo.
Thank you for coming. What type of, what kind of traffic is this place going to be generating once it's, fully operational?
Well, according to the consultant, there is no major impact. The analysis was performed on the project. And, the county has a copy of that report. And nothing negative.
And it was mentioned that there would be, I think, 4 units. Habitational, are those habitational units?
These are apartments,
Apartments?
for units, 1 and 2 bedrooms mixed.
Okay, and are any of those considered affordable by any chance?
Well, these are apartment units for rental, so
Right.
I'm not quite sure what's going to be developed in CCNR. But
Well, as proposed right now, yeah, they're not affordable units. They're just going to be market rate rental units, but they can price them however they see fit.
And my last question is related to the parking requirements. I'm wondering, for this type of development, what is typically the parking requirement?
So I can answer that. Let me just pull up the staff report here. So the parking requirements, it's 25 parking spaces. It's 1 per 800 square feet of square footage for the office use, for the research and development. And then it's just because these are smaller 1 and 2 bedroom units, it would be 1 parking space per unit. And then an additional unit or additional parking space for guest parking. So that is all that's required per our zoning regulations for mixed use. The zoning regulations are actually more restrictive than the North Fair Oaks community plan. North Fair Oaks community plan is 1 per 1,000 square feet of of office space for mixed use development. And I think these mixed use developments along our main commercial corridors and the North Fair Oaks community plan are really trying to emphasize the reduction in providing parking. And that's so we can discourage people from using vehicles at all. It's in a high quality, transit corridor. We're hoping that they can utilize more public transportation to get to work. And and that it's really the vision for this area. And that's why no VMT analysis is required and no additional traffic studies are required, is because of the location within a high quality transit corridor. So that's why the county traffic engineer and staff feels that the parking is appropriate, and it just aligns with the goals of the North Fair Oaks Community Plan.
Thank you.
Kat, please.
Following up on Councilman Rodriguez's question here. Looking at the plan, it looks like there's about seats for 50 employees or people working in the office, but given that there's only about 20 slots, do you really expect more than half of the office to not be driving into this traffic area? And then if so, where would they be expected to park, if it's more than the allocated space there?
So again, yeah, the parking is all that's available for the employees. So as part of the CCAG traffic reduction program that they're required to participate in. They can have shuttles from different locations. They can there's a variety of things that they can do to encourage employees to utilize public transportation, providing paid passes, things like that. So that's something that the owner will have to work out.
So they have no plans as of right now. It's just meeting the minimum requirements. Is that
Right.
here?
Yes.
And was there any ability or, for example, to add a second level underneath or 2 levels of underground parking? Again, I don't know, I'm not an architect or anything like that, but I'm just curious if you could go deeper.
We met the design criteria that was requested by county. And so 1 level was sufficient. Of course, as you know, going subterranean is an extreme expense. And since we met the requirements, that's where we stopped. And also considering that even though the 2 parcels are joining, still is a tight site. And when you have subterranean, you have to allow for circulation. So not the most efficient way of using that space. And the 50 number that you quoted, that's the occupancy calculation. It not necessarily mean it's going to be that amount of people.
No, understood. I guess what I was looking at was the number of desks that were listed in here, so per floor or total. So that's fine. Just want to make sure I understand it is possible. It's just prohibitively expensive to do so. If you were going to add another level, it's possible. Okay. Any other questions on this, or I have another topic?
EV charging, I hope that you include that, because I work at a commercial building and demand is going up. Everyone's buying electric cars and.
We do have a charging station at the central.
Okay. And it'll probably be, well, just plan on adding more than you expected because
We
the
are.
world's changing.
Kathleen, please.
I want to comment, it is a beautiful building. The design is really nice. I enjoyed looking at it and I could imagine it on El Camino Real if it benefited North Fair Oaks, and I don't see the benefit of that space. If I'm going to care about North Fair Oaks, I would like to see affordable housing in that space. I think the residents along the backside, which I believe at Blenheim, will be significantly impacted. That building is going to tower over those very small residents. I drove through there. I did some research today. There's currently 191 office space listings in Redwood City right now. So there's 191 office available space. And they range in anywhere from 220 square feet 220,000 square feet to 100 square feet. And there are buildings along El Camino, downtown Redwood City, and on Middlefield and I think Broadway that have 23,000 up to 30,000 square feet of office space. So when I want to protect what land we have for North Fair Oaks, I really want it to be about affordable housing for our low and middle income residents who are desperate for housing. So once again, I think it's a beautiful project. I don't see how you can go much deeper in that space in terms of trying to put in a second level for underground parking. If you go and you look at the Broadway, Redwood City, where the CVS is, and you see the hole that they're digging there, I couldn't imagine digging a hole like that on El Camino Real. Just not gonna happen. I can't even imagine digging the one hole for one level. But I just do not see, unfortunately, I do not see that this project does any benefits for our community. And at the very least, I would also encourage that if we're going to go forward, we should do a transportation study, because if there are 50 employees there, unless all of them are upstairs, half of them are living upstairs in the nice market rate apartments, there's going to be traffic. Or they're going to be parking around the corner on Blenheim, and that's even worse for the residents back there. So.
Are there any other questions from council members?
One last question. Were the surrounding residents notified about this proposal, and was there any concern or public comments received?
We sent out a notice for this meeting, and there was also a pre-application meeting that's required with a community meeting as part of it. And I believe in looking at the notes from the previous planner who conducted that meeting that there was no one that attended, unfortunately. So no, we didn't have any comments.
Okay, please.
Again, great thing. I liked part of the design. I saw it's part of the render. What are the plans for adding any sort of street trees or things on the frontage in terms of the landscape and improvements that way to green up the space?
We do have a landscaping plan. I don't know if you know it, we show it. And that's just a proposed architectural site plan, but we do have a landscape package as a part of this package. And utilizing the, whatever we have left to create the.
Do you know about how much space would be available? Again, I'm looking more in terms of some trees, shade, with all the climate change we're having, the warmth. Trees are one of the best ways to help cool things down. So just curious on how much space or what sort of plants are
I do
expected.
believe we have some trees in the backyard and some in front.
Okay.
We have created a plaza with the benches and trees. The side, as you see, is fairly narrow, so there would be shrubs, but I'm not sure if the mature tree would fit in that area, but
So the intent is to keep them kind of small and just kind of ornamental as opposed to.
Other questions from council members?
Would a motion to recommend approval?
Oh, well, I've got some questions. We have public comment as well, but. Okay. Kanawa, can you tell me why a use permit is required in this case? You mentioned that a motion would, or our recommendation involved use permit as
Yeah.
well as the lot merger, and I was under the impression it would be the lot merger that would require a recommendation from us.
Yeah, so there was an interpretation of the mixed use mixed use zoning code. So CME 1 through CME 3, it requires a configuration of a residential directly above the ground floor and higher. So if there are, if the configuration is different from that, if say there's commercial on the first 4 floors, like it is in this case, and residential on the top floor, then it would require a use permit. So the only thing that wouldn't require a use permit is if there's commercial or some other business on the ground floor, and then everything above that is residential. So it's just configuration, the mixed use configuration, which requires a use permit in this case.
And to Kathleen's point, given that this is zone CMU1, you couldn't build an all residential building on this property. Is that correct?
It's zoned for mixed use. It's higher intensity uses, and just not just residential. You could with a use permit, but it's it is zoned for higher intensity commercial uses.
Okay, and let's see. My final question is: did the rezoning that recently occurred along El Camino make this possible or change the sort of thing that could be built on this property?
No, this section has been commercial for a while, and it wasn't impacted by the most recent upgrading, a rezoning for El Camino and Middlefield.
Any other questions from council members?
Just to your point about the zoning for it, there are a couple of other housing units along El Camino. There's Fair Oaks Common, there's a senior
Sunrise.
Sunrise.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, changing the zoning to being affordable housing. There's housing there, it shouldn't too much.
Okay. Any other questions from council members?
There's an audience member who raised their hand.
I wanted to make sure we had all the council members' questions answered first. Okay, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Please.
I wanted to know what type of research do they do that you're planning to do there? And because it is really close to residential.
Can we have you go around and do a public comment?
Certainly.
And then we can get your name and information, and then we'll give you a few minute time.
Well, the thing is that I do want to speak about something because she's asking me something, but
You can't ask questions, you can make a comment.
Okay, then let me just do my comment.
Okay.
Okay,
And if it's related to this item,
it
correct?
is. Good evening, council members. My name is Rosa. And I'm here because I received a notice of the mixed-use project on 2875 El Camino. On the letter, the mailing date dated July 19th, and today's meeting is July 27th. We, the community, did not receive a 10-day advance notice. In fact, it was mailed out on Wednesday, July 19th, and it takes 2 days to process the mail, which is Thursday and Friday, then comes the weekend, which all the offices are closed. So on Monday morning, I started calling the number that is on the letterhead because the body of the letter, it states, if you want to submit your comment, you can do it in writing or by calling. The only number that was provided in this notice was the upper right-hand side of the letter. I spent Monday and Tuesday trying to speak with someone or leave a message with no luck. The number on the letterhead just rings to a point where it hangs up. I am asking the council to extend this meeting until next month meeting to allow the community to respond. I am asking that they remove the phone number that is on the letterhead, for it's of no value. Instead, in the future, when they give out the project planner's name, they should also give out the direct contact number with their email as well. A lot of the elders are not computer savvy. This will allow them to also have a voice in the subject. Thank you. And I would like to give a copy of what we received. And I would like you guys to try this number because I tried it all day. I let it read for 15 minutes and then for 15 times, excuse me, and then it would just hang up on itself. So the community could not respond at all. And I tried all these other numbers in which I have here. And I got nowhere. I just got this circle and everybody just, no one answers. No one answers. And I don't know what to do. If the community doesn't know what to do, where these numbers are voted, I just don't know. I don't know who I can give this to. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
So I would like to see this extended. We didn't have the candidates, but we should.
Do we have additional public comment on this agenda item?
We have one more public comment. We have Rosa Silveria. When you're ready, you have 2 minutes to speak. Oh, 3 minutes.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Silveria Carranza, ya, y estoy indigente por víctima de crimen.
Okay, good evening, my name is Silveria Carranza. I'm a victim of a crime.
Y estoy aquí porque, pues, prácticamente es por mi vida. Y mi hija me ayudó, yo tuvimos que salir de la propiedad de San José.
And I'm here and my daughter helped me. We had to leave our place of residence in San Jose.
Porque ahí pasó el incidente en la propia casa.
Because the incident happened at that house.
Y mi hija trabaja en el centro de seguridad. Estábamos en el carro las dos juntas, pero ella está trabajando con el auto también. Entonces no me permitieron que yo lo haga. Y yo ya estoy viviendo aquí en la Siria. Ya tengo más de 4 meses. Desde abril 1.
So what happened, my daughter works at Stanford. And I was staying with her in San Jose, and then I had to move here to Redwood City. And my mother allows us to live with her now.
Y sí he trabajado con el sistema, pero no se ha dado que me den el refugio como se debe dar, que es el hotel. Yo quisiera más hotel porque ya tengo suficiente experiencia. Yo crié a mis hijos, están en la reconstrucción.
And I was wondering if I could get some refuge so I can get housing. It doesn't have that.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Por eso la información que yo estoy haciendo, pues, también están haciendo la construcción.
Sí, pero es lo del colegio también y es parte de aquí, lo que es cuando me estoy poniendo a usted. Porque yo ya lo puse aquí, pero es un respeto. Y ellos en agosto 13. Ya vamos a estar casi a agosto y yo estaba ya.
Chair Brooks, one thing we can do is take down your information and sort of story. Make sure we connect her to the right programs.
Do we have any other public comment on this item?
We have one more hand raised. George, when you are ready, you can speak a public comment, but you can have questions.
I'm ready. I know the timing is a bit off, but I just wanted to say that I feel this project is good for the community in that it brings in much needed jobs for our residents that already live in the community. They could probably walk or bike to their job. I think it's a good change. I think it's something that's much needed. That's all I have to say.
There are no more public comments at this time.
Okay. At this point, then I'll entertain a motion to request that the zoning hearing officer approve the use permit and the lot merger for the property at 2875 Real. Someone like to make a motion to do that?
Just a quick point of order on this. The motion is for us to approve. It's not to disapprove or not recommend. If we don't want to recommend, it's.
We'll
how
make
does
a
that work?
motion and then reject the motion via vote. You want to do it that way?
All right, I'll move to make a recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, we need a roll call on this, please. Excuse me, let's have some discussion on, I'm sorry, I'm rushing this evening. Is there any discussion on the motion that's on the table? Blair, please.
I'm inclined to support allowing people to use their own land within reasonable limits. But there's a big red flag about the notice thing, because I've never heard that before. And it is entirely possible that we're not doing proper notice. And I'm concerned, I live like 3 blocks away, so I'm thinking I'm outside of the 1 block zone or whatever it is. So if we were voting, I'd vote to support the project, but if it comes down to it, I think I'm gonna ask to table it until we resolve the notice issue, because that seems like a legal requirement.
What might work would be a requirement that, because this will go to the planning commission, is that correct?
Correct.
That we make sure that the planning commission provides adequate notice to the people in the area in a timely fashion. In fact, we provide an extended period of time, perhaps an extra week or two, to notify people of the planning commission hearing that will approve or disapprove this project.
Yeah, we're just advisory.
Yeah. That moves things along and also gives people an opportunity to have public comment in front of the planning commission.
So I vote for it because it's been empty for about 8 to 10 years, as long as I lived in the neighborhood. The vet center, there's a veterinary clinic, and it's an empty parking lot that's been fenced up, and there were some squatters ripping copper out of there, and it's kind of blight right now. So it would be an improvement. We do want massing along the transit corridor. It does provide a little bit of housing, and I think they'll probably have to pay a like in lieu fee if they're not providing a below market rate housing. They'll contribute towards some elsewhere. I think it's like 20% or something. So not every site can include the affordable housing right there, but they can pay into a fund that will get a nice project somewhere else. And I bike along that. It's kind of a mixed area, and I'd like to see it more successful. So there will be jobs for custodial and office work. Yeah, so I generally support it.
Would you like to amend your motion to get to request that the planning commission provide an additional window for public comment above and beyond what would normally be provided, given the comments that we heard this evening with regard to public notice?
I absolutely would, yes.
Okay.
If I may, I want to
Please.
discuss something about the process before the planning commission. So there is, in preparation for every public hearing before the planning commission, the board of supervisors, a whole agenda review process. Documents are finalized, they're placed in the agenda queue, and then there's publication of notice, and the agenda materials are provided to the members of the planning commission. At the same time, they're presented to all members of the public. There is a requirement for notice mailing or just the notification, not the full agenda materials. So the county complies with state law that requires that notice be given by publication, by posting on the property, and by mailing to a certain number of residents within a radius of the affected property. And so that will occur in advance of the meeting. Won't happen is preparation of the materials and delivery of all the materials to all the people in any timeline different from the one that I've described.
Okay.
Generally speaking, these staff reports are finalized really kind of at the last minute before they're posted to the website and provided to the commissioners themselves. But I think that the department has probably heard loud and clear the necessity of ensuring that the notice requirement, the sending of the mailer to the people within the radius of the project take place without any kind of hiccups along the way.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that, Tim.
And I'll add that we'll make sure that we take a close look at phone numbers that are on these materials so that they're effective at actually reaching people or being able to provide some comment.
That would be appreciated as well. Thank you.
In terms of the notice, because I think one of the items that was mentioned was or that Kanoa had mentioned was that there was nobody who attended the pre-planning for the neighborhood objection. Again, I don't know if that was a matter of not notifying or being aware of what was happening and how to be involved with that. So I don't believe there's been enough community discussion or understanding of how it impacts on that one. I would love to see, to Blair, to your point, I would love to see that corridor improved. I would love to see nice buildings like this. I also think that we shouldn't settle for the minimum required designs. We should think ahead, think for the future and planning. I don't know of a company that doesn't want to grow. So trying to suggest that all the office spaces won't be filled, and the fact that a lot of these commuters, unless there's like a proper shuttle planning service or something planned for it, I do expect a lot of people here to commute. You know, I love the Caltrain, it's great, but trying to go from here to Caltrain and then from the Caltrain station to this office space on the bus, it's not a convenient or something that I would expect a typical office worker in this space to use. So I would expect most of the drive, and so unless they're carpooling, I just don't see how the traffic, or not the traffic, the parking situation is going to be any better, or it won't impact the parking. So I don't feel there's enough information or thought having been done into that. And again, just on my side, I would love to see more green space in there somehow. I understand it's a small lot, and so whatever we should. But as is, with the notice and the lack of community involvement, I don't think I can support this motion going forward.
Other discussion from council members?
Just a comment. I don't know, maybe I live in a bubble of some sort, but I guess I've never had a conversation with anybody in the last few years that said, boy, San Mateo County needs more office space. We really need more office space. I never heard that. Never heard that. And even with with all of the office space that's available now and people having the option of working from home. Yes, I want to believe that the Bay Area is going to keep growing. Absolutely. But growing with office space, I get it.
On that point, I guess, based on the plans, this looks like it's some specialized office space for biotech or genomics type work, which may or may not be available in existing office spaces, which are probably a little bit older or have been around before and can't support it. So in that sense, I support that idea and being able to build that industry and having some of that space here in San Mateo. I think it would be great. But again, I think there's a lot of other considerations that haven't been taken into account with this plan.
Other comments from council members?
Looks like, Councilmember Prado.
Oh,
Is raising his hand.
let Juan Carlos, please.
Yes, good evening. On the renderings presented here, I see some mature trees. My question is, are those existing trees, or are those trees that are being proposed as part of this development? Can I get some clarity on that, please?
And all proposed trees. Currently, there are no trees on that.
Yeah, and this is Kanoa here. So that's part of the requirement for North Fair Oaks is to provide some level of landscaping and street trees that they will maintain out front. So that will be part of the project.
Okay, so the project is compliant in that regard also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Again, just to clarify though, these would be ornamental and they would not be mature given the space that was limited, is my understanding.
There'll be street trees that are appropriate for the space. They won't be, like oaks or something that has they can grow to a huge size. They'll be appropriate for the space. 8 feet, probably.
Comment? I would
Yes,
encourage
please.
everyone to drive over there and park in front of the building and see that there is, I can't imagine there's room for the pretty trees that are on this rendering. they're just not there. You're gonna be butt up right up next to the MAS Movers Company. There's nothing in between.
Hi, this is George Saman. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, George.
Hi, Kathleen, team. I just wanted to add, I know that parking is, can
Chairman,
you guys hear me?
one moment, George.
For our attendance purposes tonight, I don't believe you can speak as anything other than a member of the public.
Okay, fair enough. I'll refrain.
Unless you're exposed to COVID.
Yeah, we have one with a medical exemption, but as you do not, you could only speak as. a
Not
member
medical. I
of
will
the
refrain.
public.
I respect
Okay.
that. I respect the terms. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Other members.
Yeah, I think that, in my experience, oftentimes, Norfolk's council members are put in this very difficult situation of, wanting to support those who comply with the requisites while also looking out for the community's needs. And, things run contrary, unfortunately. And it is because, county's requirements really are extremely conservative when it comes to benefiting the community of North Fair Oaks. That is the bottom line. And, in this particular case, as in several others that have come to this council, the applicant, is not at fault. They comply with all the requisites. But essentially, the requisites are, 25 spaces for this building where we know that almost certainly there's going to be more than 25 cars, filling up those desks and homes. And so it is unfortunate that we as council members have to make a decision based on whether we support the applicant or whether we support the community, because those things run contrary. And many times, the applicant suffers for that reason, or the community suffers, which is more often the case. So, I just wanted to bring that up so that we know where we stand as council members, for whatever decision we make to support, either this application or the community's needs.
Any other comments from Blair? Please go ahead.
There's kind of an issue of taking where if you own that parcel and I want you to build a daycare center because I feel like we want a daycare center, but you own it. You're not allowed to do anything unless you build the daycare center I want. That's kind of like I'm taking your property and telling you, unless you do what I want, you can't have anything there. Like, I don't want you to have a single family home. I want there to be at least 5 apartment units there. So before we approve anything, I need to see a bunch of, I don't think that's fair to take away people's private property rights that they have invested, probably with borrowed money or whatever, a lot into trying to get a project to work. And it's really hella expensive to get 2 parcels and merge them together. There's like a vacant pharmacy and the parking lot. It's kind of El Camino is sketchy. There's nice stretches and then there's like total blight. And the vape thing has been vacant the whole time. That furniture thing, they're really annoying because they park out on the street and I have to try to get my bike past them. But they're bringing jobs, it's economic activity. That's great. But I recognize that it's a fundamental right if it's your property that if it's been zoned for this and you're in compliance, you should be able to do what you achieve the maximum economic potential of that. And the neighbor may not like the color of your roof or your, there's not enough trees to please your neighbor, but, they can plant trees on their land. I understand about the street landscaping, and we do lack mature street trees like you see in Menlo Park and other communities. And that's a community-wide problem, and we're looking at maybe getting a couple here, but generally, I applaud them for risking their money to bring a business and some jobs to the area. So that's my rambling comment.
Niket, please.
On that note, I generally support that as well, but I also have to say that, because we live in a community, because it's not just impacting your own property and being able to do that, we do have to have some consideration for those of us in the neighborhood and around it. And again, in isolation, I absolutely would support this plan. I just would like to see if there's some more tweaks or some more inputs from the community. And if there's some ways to kind of take those considerations into account to be a considerate neighbor. Because yes, you can absolutely come in, do what you want and have it. We've had that happen before in our neighborhood with TJ Homes, and how initially they came in and they were absolutely not considerate to us. We raised a ruckus until they said, okay, let's be a good neighbor. And all the future projects have worked. And so they've been able to maximize their profits while working with the community, as opposed to working against it. And so I do agree with you that, I don't want to infringe on anybody's right to maximize their economic benefits and potential, but that shouldn't come as harm to other people. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it without consideration of others around you.
Any other discussion from council members? I agree with Kathleen's point that there is an awful lot of office space available in the area. I think anybody who drives around our part of the peninsula will see that. By the same token, I've got to believe that the owners of this company have priced out the available space, and for what they need to do, their specific requirements, they're finding that building this building is a better economic solution than taking over portions of a already built facility. And I have difficulty voting against projects that comply with our zoning and the other requirements that go into doing these things. So to Ever's point, we're put in a tight spot now and then, even though we're just an advisory body making recommendations. But that's kind of the way I see these things. It's that unless someone is asking us for an exception that would negatively impact the community, and we have the not authority, but we can make a recommendation, yay or nay, with regard to that exception, I tend to just say they're doing things as they should be doing them, and I would approve the project. But that's my contribution to the discussion.
For this particular project, given the apparent issues with notification, is that still a consideration for you?
I think so, because to Adam's point, I believe that subsequent to our meeting, there will be adequate notification and opportunities for the public to provide input to this project. So if there was a glitch in that, I think it'll be corrected as the project moves through the approval process with the county.
For my information on this, then, is the zone hearing officer, which is the next step, would they be able to take public comment or community? Because last time we tried that, we were told it was only comments and there was not much in the way of actual discussion like we're having today. It was more of, hey, we've already gotten this far down the process, let's just push it out instead of trying it again. Again, that was my feeling with that particular incident with the zone hearing officers. And so I don't know how much the community will be able to impact at that late of a stage.
Tim can talk a little bit about the process.
The hearings that are held by the zoning hearing officer and other land use permit issuing bodies in the county, things like the design review committee, the planning commission, the board, are essentially applying a set of regulations that have been adopted by the Board of Supervisors, much as the chair indicated about what development must look like in order to obtain permits. So to the extent that public comments add to the question of whether or not a project complies or fails to comply with the county's requirements, they're received, and then the decision maker applies them based on his or her knowledge of how those rules have been interpreted in the past. I believe that members of the public that encounter that process sometimes for the first time because there's a project proposed near them and they are not necessarily watching a whole array of land use proceedings in the county, might mistake the process as being ones where they're invited to make the project better by suggesting changes. This process that the council engages in is more like that process. It is entirely the task of this council from the Board of Supervisors to hear concerns from the community and to voice those concerns. So we don't really write the staff reports for these items as being guidance about how to apply these regulations in the way that the other decision makers in the pipeline will apply them. So yeah, there is going to be a difference between the type of conversation that takes place before the North Fair Oaks Council and the type that will occur before maybe the zoning hearing officer. The Planning Commission generally tends to have receive comments from a larger array of members of the public, and then for projects that go to the board, people turn out before the board who may not have even attended any of the prior hearings because they know it's their last shot to say something about the project. So, except the thing is that the entire process allows for those comments to be made at any time. This is not the only forum in which people can speak. They can write letters and emails to the planner saying, I don't believe this project complies with your rules. Or is there a way that we can change it to make it better? Sometimes the answer is no. Our regulations might not provide for a way to make it better. Or better might not be an objective standard. I don't think I've been asked to make a recommendation about what to do, and I don't know whether you necessarily need it from me, but there will be continuing opportunity for members of the public to do both things that I've talked about. Talk about the alignment of the project with the regulations, and also just express their views as citizens and residents of the community. Equally so, this is what I don't like about this project. Those comments will be received at every stage of the process.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. Any other discussion from council members?
Can I add one more comment? And so the process is going to proceed, whether we support it or not. Let's remind ourselves that we are an advisory council. And, it's not going to be news if, if the process goes on and, the applicant gets the permits, which is most likely what's going to happen. And so, being a little pragmatic in terms of the vote many times is not necessarily about what you vote against. It is also who you vote for or who you represent for. And so, I've been in this community and I wholeheartedly support it because I know that there's a precedent, for neglect. And I believe that, in the sense that this council supports the community, there may be a possibility for the voice of the community to be heard or not. So just wanted to mention.
I feel like we should allow the residents surrounding that area to be able to voice their concerns, and we should hold off until such a time when they get a shot at it. If we're going to represent North Fair Oaks, that's the right thing to do.
I would echo that statement, and to Councilman Rodriguez's point, just because it would be pragmatic to have that recommendation or not, doesn't mean that we should. It's up to the zone hearing officer and all the subsequent planning to make that decision. I see our role as trying to balance the needs of the community with the economics and the applicants. And again, like we've said, it's a very hard decision and it's a hard position, but that's kind of what we signed up for. And so, given that we're supposed to be the voice of the community is supposed to be here and be able to talk about it. And again, we haven't seen that. And this is not the first project that this has happened. We see it for the big ones like the Middlefield project. There's a lot of outreach. There's a lot of things that happen. But for these small projects, it doesn't happen. And those add up and actually have a bigger impact than a large project. And so I would really look to see what's wrong with our process from the county side to figure out how do we get more people involved to hear that voice. So when we make that decision, we can feel comfortable that we're representing the community, because tonight I don't feel comfortable that I'd be adequately representing the community by voting for this motion. I feel like there's more to it and we haven't heard enough.
If there's no further comment from council members, there's a motion on the table and I believe we need a roll call.
Can we clarify what the motion is?
The motion is, Niket, do you want to restate your motion? Or-
So I believe because we are not amending it to extend the time, the motion was for this board to provide a recommendation to move forward with the project as discussed in this presentation.
Okay.
And as I understand it, a vote against the motion is to not provide that recommendation to the board.
That's good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Now proceed with roll call votes. Vice Chair Blair Whitney,
Abstain.
Councilmember Juan Carlos Prado,
Yes.
Councilmember Everardo Rodriguez,
No.
Councilmember Niket Cersey,
No.
Councilmember Kathleen Daly,
No.
and Chair Brooke Setzer.
Yes.
Motion passes with 3 no votes.
That's not,
This is
not pass. No, we have 3 no votes.
I'm just reading.
We need to have the alternate script.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
So the motion failed for lack of adequate aye votes. A new motion is immediately in order, or you can move to your next item. Both are options.
Would a motion to suggest a rework of the plan or to provide more community input be appropriate?
I think you could,
The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide that input. But it's not within the power of the council to direct the changes be made to the project. You are advising the later decision makers in the process what the voice of the community is. So if you want to instead ask whether or not there's majority support on the council for specific changes to the project, that will make its way to the planner for use by future decision makers in the process.
Alternatively, we could also make a motion to disallow the continuation of the project or not pass the permit for future, I guess. A negative recommendation.
The failure of a motion to recommend the project is effectively a way of communicating that you do not recommend the project.
correct.
Okay.
But that does not have an effect on the project going forward.
Understood. Again, I think that's understood. I unfortunately don't have any specific changes that I would propose to this project. I think we voiced a lot of our concerns, but I wouldn't have something, and I don't have the expertise or knowledge to say that. So again,
How about, I move to forward to the planning commission a neutral recommendation, neither supporting nor opposing strongly this project.
So there's a motion on the floor.
Do we have a second for that?
What was it again?
A neutral declaration, neither supporting nor opposing this project to the planning commission.
That, that
kind of sort of.
That in effect leaves the community without a voice about the issue. It's as if we said, we don't care. I don't know, in my mind.
The rules are there's a motion. So if there's no second, does that mean the motion fails?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
It dies for lack of a second.
I would move then we provide a recommendation to not approve as is without community support. Or without further community input into the process or I guess like we said, we've already had a no vote, so it's a no recommendation. So if we don't do nothing, there is not a recommendation to move forward.
Correct.
Correct.
But it's still going to the planning.
It'll go forward. What will the planning officer see at that point?
That the North Fair Oaks Council met to discuss the project and vote that a motion to recommend the project failed.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we were against the project. We just didn't support the project.
Effectively, yes.
Okay.
I would second that.
Discussion? You restate your motion.
No, I wasn't restating the motion. I was trying to understand right now, as it stands, the zone hearing officer, when they look at this, will see that the North Fair Oaks Council did not support this recommendation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we oppose the recommendation. So it would be a motion to oppose the project as is. It would be what we need if we wanted a strong negative.
Even stronger. Okay.
Is that the motion on the floor?
Yes.
All right, so I will.
Let's second it. So
Okay, do we have a second for that?
I can second that.
Okay, discussion then?
Robert, did you second that? The motion on the floor. With a second by Albert, and then do you want to roll call?
Well, discussion.
Discussion first. Please.
Yeah.
Any discussion on this?
Can I ask a question? So just so I understand it, that means we're saying no, we don't.
We're saying we oppose the project as is to the zone hearing officer, as opposed to saying we just didn't support a recommendation. This is a negative, a strong negative, as opposed to a neutral negative.
And the issue isn't so much with the project itself, it's with the notification that was not provided for public comment to the public prior to coming to the North Fair Oaks Community Council.
Correct. Or at least a major concern there.
Okay,
So I support the project. I would vote to support the project. I only abstained because if I got a letter in the mail and I tried calling it and I got no one, I would be pissed off. So I abstained because I feel like it's a flawed process. But I don't feel like we should jeopardize or hurt them as they move forward to the planning commission. So I'd probably vote no on this. Or yes,
it's
abstain. Yeah.
it's my impression, based upon what Tim had said, is that there will be ample opportunity for the community to contribute their ideas and input to this project. It works its way through planning.
So, thank you for giving that, Tim, but would you be able to provide or how would we be able to tell the community that they need to be, these are the stages they want? Or is there outreach that's going to happen? Is there ways for us to know? I know, Adam, you mentioned you're going to make sure that the phone number works. Does that mean we're going to send out a new mailing notice to everybody with the proper phone number and contact information with sufficient time? Because again, I know we're on a schedule here, and so.
Yeah, this is the project planner. I can kind of speak to that. So I can mail out another notice to the community, ensuring that all the information is correct. My email is on that notice. Anybody can email me. I'll make sure to. We just got a new Teams phone number that calls my computer, and that's our only work line now. So I'll make sure that's on there. And we can, I'll also discuss with the CMO's office about noticing in the future. All of the noticing that is done by the individual planner for our specific item. Typically, there's for the planning commission, other public meetings, there is a secretary that we send all of the a list of all of the people that need to be noticed to, and then they send a complete agenda, so they know everything that's on the agenda, who's going to be there, all the different projects that are going to be there. But in this case, we don't do that. We send a courtesy notice for our individual projects. So it may be prudent to discuss, maybe with the CMO's office, that we can coordinate all of the projects being noticed at the same time in a very specific format. I had some trouble getting my. We have to do Spanish translation for our individual notices. So so maybe we can discuss that moving forward and streamline that process and make that better. But I can definitely send out a notice early next week about the project and with my contact information to everybody within 300 feet of the project. And I'll ensure that all the information is accurate, correct, and they reach a person.
And that notice, Kanawha, will include next steps in the process and opportunities for the public to contribute their opinions on the project. Is that correct?
Yes, it'll be in both English and Spanish. It'll explain the zoning hearing officer meeting and a tentative schedule for the project moving forward. And then my contact information, which they can voice their opinion, they can send letters that will be included in the staff reports and given to the zoning hearing officer for them to read. And so that could inform their decision.
Thank you for that. Blair?
Sometimes technology sucks and is stupid, so it makes sense to maybe keep like an old-fashioned actual landline voicemail answering machine in the planning department that either goes to voicemail or is answered by a receptionist, because we're dealing with all age groups, all cohorts. And, someday Teams is going to go down. They're not going to notify you in advance. I don't like over dependence on whatever the salesperson sold the county. So I'm just suggesting that as far as the customer service thing, the planning department try to be more fail-safe, inclusive kind of thing. That's all I got.
Is there any other comment on the motion that's on the table? Could you restate, Niket, for the purposes of a roll call, the motion?
The motion is for this council to oppose the project as presented in tonight's meeting to the zone hearing officer.
And we have a second?
I did.
We have a second, okay. There's no further discussion. Of roll call, please.
Now proceed with roll call votes. Vice Chair Blair Whitney,
No.
Councilmember Juan Carlos Prado,
No.
Councilmember Niket Searcy,
I will abstain.
Councilmember Kathleen Daly,
If you oppose, you vote yes.
I oppose it, so it's yes.
Chair Professor,
No.
You missed something. Ever.
Councilmember Everardo Rodriguez,
Yes.
have 3 no votes.
Yeah, 4 no votes.
3. I abstained.
Oh,
Now you have 3.
So basically it's, yeah.
The motion did not receive
Right.
4 yes votes, so
That's
the motion failed.
And when a motion fails, the floor is open for immediate other motion or move on to the next item on the agenda.
Yes.
I move that we move the agenda.
Well, we don't need a motion for this. We'll proceed to agenda item number 5, report out, county executive.
Okay, thank you. Couple of things I wanted to mention. One is that the county is revisiting its Measure K allocations. And the county hasn't done this in about 10 years. And we're going back and looking at new priorities that were established by the board through a public session. I think it was in January of this year. As part of that reallocation of Measure K funds, the board would like to hear from the community. And so there will be a slate of listening sessions in different areas within the county, one of which will be here on August 22nd at 6 to 7 o'clock. And that will give the public an opportunity to talk about where their Measure K dollars go. It is not intended for CBOs or nonprofits who might be competing for those dollars, but more to hear the voice of the community. So that is one thing I wanted to share.
Sorry, quick question.
Yes.
What's Measure K again?
Sales tax?
Measure K is a sales tax that the county has that supports different public projects. It supported a number of building projects, including the building of the Regional Operations Center. And it supports a lot of local individual projects, including the allocation of funds to support mental health services, kind of a general pool of funds that the county has that is discretionary and is used for one-time projects, typically to support the community and the needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Should have mentioned that. One of the other things I wanted to report on is a specific Measure K allocation that Supervisor Slocum sponsored at the last board meeting, which was for mental health services, $100,000 in mental health services to One Life Counseling Center, which will provide students and families from Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, and Bellhaven access to mental health services. This is particularly targeted to youth, 5 to 18. The Surgeon General has identified that we have a mental health crisis in this country that was exacerbated through the pandemic. And there's a particular shortage of mental health service access in the county of San Mateo, and particularly with the Latinx population. So through Supervisor Slocum's leadership, $100,000 has been designated and apportioned to support mental health services locally. They can be accessed through different ways, which we can provide more information about, but it includes through the Redwood City PAL, Siena Youth Center after school programs, and some additional programs within the county. I just wanted to share that with everybody, a good program that should benefit students and families in North Fair Oaks. We also, as I briefly reported out on at the beginning of the meeting, are making some substantial progress on the Middlefield Road project through a lot of hard work from our Department of Public Works and support through our Office of Community Affairs. Between 1st and 3rd Avenue on the eastbound side, there should be paving Friday, tomorrow. 1st to Dumbarton on Saturday. K-rail removal, which should open up access to businesses to some extent, August 1st, and striping August 2nd through those zones. And then we're looking to do additional work and leading to K-rail removal from Dumbarton to Pacific on approximately August 15th. So a lot of hard work ongoing, hopefully some progress that eases the burden on our businesses in North Fair Oaks.
Good question, Adam. As far as enforcement on the painted curbs along the, in the business district area, do you have a sense of, is the sheriff going to be doing that or?
The sheriff would be the responsible party to do that. I can check in with the local captain and see what efforts and what rotations they might have to do that. The sheriff's office is particularly understaffed at this time. And so I know they're prioritizing things like staffing the jail and things like that. So I can't make any commitments, but I can certainly get you some information on whether there'll be enforcement or whether it's hopefully the curb, discourages folks.
Might be useful, at least in the beginning, to have, 2 weeks of enforcement might solve the problem. Those 2 weeks are at the start of the project. People kind of get the idea. Yeah, somebody's watching. I won't park my car here all day, kind of thing. Just a thought.
Makes good sense.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we have council members report out. Blair, anything tonight?
The community fair thing that was in the parking lot with the mural was actually really cool. And they had a local business, one of the burrito places that was complaining about the economic impact. They got a little business to provide the food for that. Our neighbors group had a booth along with just like a ton of things, and I was surprised there were actually community residents and kids there. And I was like a kid too, talk about ham radio and emergency trailers, and it's kind of cool. So I'm excited to see that stuff developing. That's my report.
Juan Carlos, report out tonight. How are you feeling, by the way?
Not tonight.
Are you
Better,
feeling
thank you.
Somewhat better. Good. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
For those of you who don't know, Juan Carlos is attending remotely last night. He got back from a trip to Europe with COVID. So we're using that exception to the Brown Act to allow him to participate as a voting member of the council, but glad to hear you're feeling better. Ever, anything to report out tonight?
Same, the Norfolk Preparedness Fair, which was organized by the Office of Emergency Management, supported by FCA, and included several emergency providers and disaster preparedness organizations serving our county. They had, like Councilmember Whitney said, demonstrations on how to prepare for potential disasters, emergencies, first aid skills by the Red Cross, and I think it is good, particularly these days under climate change threats, for to raise awareness among families, to kind of be on the lookout for those days with extreme heat, or torrential rains, or the smoke that can be brought in from fires miles away from Oregon or Southern California all of a sudden. So that was extended.
Thank you. Niket?
One note, I think, was hearing, would love to hear more about if we can get in the future, any of the effects of the fireworks ordinances and if there's been any enforcement around that. Unfortunately, we haven't noticed a reduction much in our neighborhood. They're going off pretty much every night and still there. So I know they put a new plan in for enforcement, just wondering what the effectiveness is and has it worked at all?
We can get you some information on that.
Speaking about fireworks, I learned something. You know, the city of Newark sells the fireworks and they make a ton of money, and the money goes to their schools and all their.
They have a whole neighborhood thing. Alviso has a huge block party neighborhood where they have competitions on who can shoot
They
off.
sell them, and so. I mean, I feel sorry for sheriffs. I don't know that there's a good answer, because if you can just drive across the bay and buy them. I mean, I hear them too. I'm right there. So, but it's well, until we get them not allowed around here, I don't know. Feel sorry for the sheriff department.
I know the fireworks buyback went pretty well, but I didn't realize that we were essentially passing money from the city of Newark.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. When I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, you could drive to Newark and.
The Newark stuff is tame and safe and sane.
Yeah.
People go to Nevada and bring truckloads of the really big stuff, and that's.
Sounds like grenades or rocket launchers.
Stuff that's almost commercial grade mortars. it's a big business. It's like the same networks that sell drugs and other stuff and usually sell that.
Anything else to report out tonight? Kathleen, report.
I had heard, but I don't have the details. Are you guys familiar with National Night Out? I don't know if the sheriff's department, is there dedicated places? I've not seen where any neighborhoods are hosting it. Maybe I should just look up online and I'll share that with the council. It's my understanding that there may be somebody in the Menlo, North Fair Oaks area.
Typically, it's like the first weekend in August,
Yes,
that's what I've
yes, yes.
seen, and they usually have a big fair over at Hallbrook Palmer that I get noticed for. I've seen, I think they bring in a chopper and stuff like that. They've done some in the past.
Town of Atherton's got that, and then there's like 3 cities doing something around Red Morton Park, like St. Carlos and Redwood City. North Fair Oaks specifically, I don't know, but I think in the past, Sheriff's Department has had like a block thing.
Yeah.
We'll close the street down, have some ice cream, encourage people to come out.
They also have a thing about leaving the light on for the night and for fun or whatever, get out, meet your neighbors.
Might be something to consider for next year's.
I don't think I've seen it since the pandemic started, so maybe since then they just haven't restarted it. The last I remember was pre-pandemic, so.
Anything else, Kathleen?
No, sorry. Thank you.
It's me. My sense of how fireworks went this year, we heard fewer, I believe, and I have a couple of people, residents that correspond with me that seem to get the impression that there were fewer this year. In particular, the really scary ones, the ones that sound like mortars that can really harm not only neighbors, but also the people who are playing with these things. So it seems as though
I feel like it moved towards like 5th or 4th in that area, and maybe over like in Bay and kind of like that neighborhood is where we heard a lot of it coming from.
Yeah, I think progress was made there this year, and hopefully will continue in the future. As annoying as those things are, what I hate to hear the stories of people who are playing with those things and get hurt permanently by them. That's just awful.
That's Darwin for me.
Yeah. What do I have? I had a note on the listening session that Adam mentioned. Finally, for me, Jennifer Ruiz has resigned from the council. So we now have 2 open positions for regular members as well as the 2 student positions. So I'd like to encourage all the members of the council to reach out to those they know in the community, encourage them to apply for positions, because obviously we're dealing with a lot of issues in the community now. I think the engagement that we have among our current council members is excellent. We certainly have room for more. So please take that out to your contacts in the community and encourage them to apply. With that, that concludes our agenda. Thanks to our presenters tonight. Thanks to members of the public who attended and participated. And as always, thanks to our county staff, Emma, Kenny, Josh, Jennifer, Adam, Tim, Bo, Sydney, and particularly Ruby for helping out this evening. Our next council meeting, regular session on August 24th, 7 to 9 here. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I was waiting for you to abstain.
No,
Well, you can hang here if you like. Blair, how about that?